Welcome to the Studio 70 podcast. Our goal is for you to join in on real behind-the-scenes conversations about our projects and the people who make them happen. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, I'm Austin Parenti.
And this is Phil King.
And we just wrapped on Knights of the Old Republic. I guess we're a little further than wrapped. We pretty much have the final cut. So, how are you feeling in light of this?
Well, I mean, after watching it, I feel really good. I feel like we had a task and we set out to do it and we accomplished that task. And I think just being a huge fan of the game and the story, I think that we did right by everybody.
Yeah, I think we totally did our best. You said that after watching it, you feel great. After filming, did you feel the same? Or?
I kind of did. Like, it was, so we shot a ton, like an insane amount of footage in very little time. And it was like, I think we nailed it. I'm not sure. I just need to go lie down. That's all I felt after filming it. But it was a great process. It was super fun, and I think the kids really enjoyed it. And hopefully, the best thing that could happen is after watching it, someone's like, I'm going to go play that game.
Yes. Yeah. That's the hope, is it just reinvigorates people to love the IP. Even if they're picking up, most people I've met have not read like the Revan book, or the comic books for that matter. So I'd love to see even renewed interest in that expanded content. I remember we wrapped. So Andrew, my brother, plays one of the Sith troopers. He was with us. Stuart Lewis was visiting from college. He's one of the Sith troopers. My friend James from New York was Trask. And Christy was visiting from New York to be our production designer. So all of us afterwards went to my parents' house just to have steaks that my parents had cooked. And it was so delightful to just sit and rest. But I could tell our energy, we were all so exhausted and yet so wired, Yeah. And so I'm while everybody's distracted talking to my parents and stuff, I'm grabbing my MacBook and actually cutting some shots, because I'm like, wait, does that combat actually synchronize and work? I felt kind of the same way, really tight and needing to rest. But I'm proud. I mean, we started writing this process, me, you, and Forrester, way back in September, maybe, is when we voted. And but it was your initial idea. I know you share this in the BTS video as well, but I remember it was on the set of Grey Trials where you were like, we're doing this Star Wars thing, we should just do KOTOR. Is that accurate?
Yeah. We were it was during Grey Trials, and originally, and for all you who've seen Grey Trials, in episode 1, we kind of spoof everyone at the end. We were like, hey, you guys, they're going to Korriban, and everyone's like, whoa. And I'm like, we need to do a KOTOR. Like this place looks awesome. We had it on, we're trying to build these levels and do things, and we should really think, and at the time it was kind of just a saying, that'd be cool for us to shoot Knights of the Republic. And then I think later on, when you started really thinking about it, it's if anyone could shoot this film, it would be us.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. It just seems like we happen to have the staff that cares, the technology that enables us to tell the story, and we're also not limited. Whether Disney or some other studio was outsourced or hired to produce this, they would probably necessarily have to make a lot of changes from the original game. But we don't have those sorts of restraints where we have to think about our I don't even know.
The composition of the characters or anything. We just did it.
Right. We just cloned it.
I know. And it's all, and we didn't have to, it wasn't there's some producer who wants to say something about this film that's not even played the game. You know what I mean? I love everything that, trying to keep Star Wars alive and put things out, but it's people should be connected to the IP. You should, and I understand they're super busy. They don't have time to play the games and read all the books. But when you have people who have done that,
right,
we can really, serve the fans well in what we're doing.
Yeah, so I felt that given our unique situation of being very free, at liberty to create whatever we want, and our passion for the project and knowledge of the project, it was really the tech that was holding me back for the longest time. I was like, I don't think we can do it. But as I started thinking through, as we did this together too, just looking at the plot on paper from the Endar Spire to the Unknown World and the Starforge, I kind of realized that because of the technical limitations at the time in the game, it is necessarily kind of a quiet game. It's an epic story, but it's only ever 3 people at once fighting about 2 or 3 people at once in quite confined quarters, Maybe the most expansive the game really feels and gets is like the Valley of the Dark Lords, feels pretty sweeping when you first walk out there, or like, the desert on Tatooine. But when we were really going through beat by beat, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we could do virtually everything. It's not as hard as I thought. What's going to be challenging are things like the crate dragon,
all that. But I don't know if anyone's been following our stuff, every year we kind of add something a little bit bigger, and that's because technology is just advancing in a way where it's like, hey, this used to be behind this giant like studio, tons of money paywall, like for you to be able to do any of this stuff. But now it's like, oh, you want to motion capture someone? Yeah, sure. Here, just buy this thing from Rococo, and now you can do it.
Right? Yeah. And like my visual effects skills are not professional. Like it's not what I do full time. So there are even just YouTube content creators who are far better than I am. But I was finding that even at my level, with this intro level tech that we have, like the mocap suit, we're able to churn out a product that looks good enough for most people, and for like uneducated audiences that don't really know visual effects, it's indistinguishable. Like only when we watch Planet of the Apes, the new ones are outstanded by the motion capture animation, the way that the eye, even when they go in for a close-up, has those multiple layers of lenses and organic tissue that refracts light in such and such a way. My dad doesn't care. He doesn't notice because he's only really experiencing the story. He's not critiquing the visuals. So I feel like even though my skills are nowhere near what would be awesome, in an ideal world for KOTOR, for most people it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. And it's like, I mean, even for the diehard Star Wars, like, yes, in the late 70s and early 80s, like it was cool and groundbreaking, but it was like, I'm a Star Wars fan because lightsabers. It's like everyone remembers the Darth Vader reveal that he's Luke's father. It's like, it's the story that we're all connected to. So
right.
Yeah, I think in the story of Knights of the Republic is just incredible that it's going to stand out above. And all that being said, guys, I think the special effects looks good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I'm like, dude, this is great. This is literally like, can we play this version of the game?
Yeah, in Unreal Engine 5. Let's talk about the characters, the writing process. I mean, some of them were quite easy. Like Bastila is essentially going to be the same. It was cool to write her scene on the Endar Spire, which we don't get in the game. But I think the 2 biggest challenges were Karth and the player, who we're calling the engineer, partially to just honor the player, who could type in their own name. We want you to feel like this is your guy too. But do you remember any of those early discussions for the player character and how we were going to characterize him now that he's not being puppeteered by the viewer, but he has to have his own dialogue and his own choices,
Yeah, it was interesting. And I think we stemmed a decent amount off of the player due to like, okay, how are we gonna, at least for this first episode, right? It's like the player and Karth, like you're always together. A lot of us who play the game, Karth is super annoying, and I'm like, he's kind of just this Debbie Downer the whole time, like just go away. And so we're like, okay, well, how, if we're gonna watch him for 2.5 hours, like how are we gonna make him exciting? And I think we put a nice spin on Karth where he's kind of motivating the player, and we get this like buddy cop relationship that's going to form where like, okay, he's the seasoned war veteran and this is just some engineer, but he's got some skills, and like they both are going to kind of feed each other, and it just makes it way more interesting. Like we don't start off like, every time I played KOTOR, I'm taking the 4th option. Let's just like, smash people and move on. But when we wrote the engineer, it was kind of like, okay, well, who is this character? We know that all of us, I don't want to spoil what happens at the end, but there's this grand like change that happens. So how can we be almost the exact opposite of what the end state is for this character.
Yeah, because that makes it more dynamic,
Yeah.
rather than, and I felt like this with the Solo movie, like he kind of starts off as a loner smuggler type guy, and by the end he's a loner smuggler type guy, and it just makes you leave the theater wondering, like, okay, so what was really the point? Like, I guess he got a little colder, but it's so much more fun when it's like you start off as a great guy and you end up a supervillain like The Godfather.
Yeah, it's like we're dedicating as the audience this amount of time to go on this journey with this person, and if we didn't get anywhere, it's like, well, I just wasted 2.5 hours of my time. But it's like, yo, we were with him when he had nothing, and now he's at like, okay, this was like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so for the engineer, you've got 3 options when you start the game. You can be a soldier, a scoundrel, or a scout, which we didn't go with any of those. That's the first break in the canon that we do that might upset some people, but it was intentional because first, scoundrel doesn't really make sense. I think in the Old Republic actually kind of fixed that and changed it to the smuggler. A scout of all things being an option. I guess that makes sense that you would be on a starship serving as a scout. But like, if you think about like classic D&D Team Fortress, like compositions of teams and selectable classes, that you don't really see that emulated anywhere else. A soldier, scoundrel, scout, that's a very strange arrangement right there. But the point was that none of them really offered us the exact opposite origin that we were looking for, because you're right, he's going to end up having a dramatic transformation and being incredibly powerful. He's going to have his own Jedi story, right? So what's like the opposite of a hyper-religious, hyper-powerful mystic is a science-y oriented, nerdy introvert, data-driven person. So engineer became like the clear choice for me, and did the exact paradox we were looking for with Karth, where Karth is the war veteran, tough, courageous, valorant sort of dude. So
it'd be like if you had, because Karth is a soldier, and then instead we picked the soldier, it's like, okay, well, obviously they might get along, but it's kind of boring. It's just like two of the same people.
Right.
But now because we have this nerdy engineer who kind of might get on the soldier's nerves because he's like, this is not how we do things. Like, again, like you said, it just makes things way more interesting.
And we don't want to, hopping over to Karth, like, I think many of the characters in KOTOR, when you first meet them, are a little off-putting on your first playthrough. I actually watched my wife play through.
Except for HK. Everyone loves HK.
HK, Candrass, and Jolie, I would say, are the exceptions. But like, Bastila takes charge of the team, and it's like, what are you doing? I'm the main character. Karth is constantly, suspicious of you. And you're like, why are you suspicious of me? I'm just the player. I'm just doing what the plot tells me. Juhani, is a classic example.
Just, and then missions just nagging you the whole time. And you're like, okay.
Early on. Now, I think it's really creative what they did, that ultimately, as you unpack their stories, like I remember the first time Karth talks about his wife, his child, and you meet his son on Korriban. And it makes sense of that early suspicion and his revenge with Saul Kareth. It's so dynamic that you do fall in love with the character. You have your own little opposite origin story with them. So on the second playthroughs, I don't mind when I first run into Mission because I'm thinking about the abandonment from her brother, or Juhani as a former slave, whose dad was like killed in front of, drunk, and then her mom was killed in front of her and she was sold into slavery. But for a movie, we don't like really have the luxury of early buy-in and commitment, nor do we have the luxury of the long term, where we can spend 16 hours getting to know Karth in these slow bite-sized pieces. So we knew we had to rework things to make these characters engaging and likable right away without sacrificing their canon. So I can assure the fans, we discussed this, like Karth's canon is the same. It's really just his dialogue, and the maybe that inspiring function that he'll also play to keep our main character on track. So I think we did what we could to adapt this well without sacrificing the essential ingredients of what makes Karth, Bastila. Candrass is the same, once 100%. We meet him.
And Nick Puga, who plays Karth, just does a fantastic job, and he's like a very engaging person already. And I think that he'll definitely portray Karth that people are like, oh, I could be friends with Karth. Like he's not the killjoy that we all like.
We'll see how we do when we're actually filming the rest of the movie. But I was really pleased when I asked at the end of the reading process, Ruby Freeman, when she read the script for the first time, I was like, who was your favorite character on the Ebon Hawk? And she said Karth. I threw two fists in the air and was like, yes, because most people say he's their least favorite, perhaps after, Dantooine, let's say.
Yeah.
If I were to ask my wife, she was like, oh, Karth was the worst. So I was so pleased that our writing had led her to that point. We'll see if we pull it off in the film. I'm sure Nick will do his part. So it's just up to us.
I think we have some magic.
Yeah. What else was different here? So, I mean, we shot this short in like 3 days. We've been editing it forever. You color graded it. And I mean, it's kind of quite a usual tale for us. Sent it to Anthony for music.
Yeah.
We backed out more for some wider stuff. I mean,
yeah, we did. We definitely tried some wider stuff, and something that really helps too. I think people will notice how, especially if you play the game, how accurate that the settings and locations are. Like the Endar Spire looks beautiful, both in the digital shots, and we shot a lot of it on the volume, and it's pretty true to the game. Like I think for all those who really remember the game, I mean, we're literally copying shots that happened in the game, and you'll be like, that's just exactly it.
Yeah.
And it was great to use that for inspiration. And then we also were a little creative. We kind of added some things with, the captain, like Bandon running into the captain early on.
The Bastila thing we already talked about, kind of seeing her escape the ship. But otherwise, I mean, we even featured the choice between the security spikes overloading the console and the droid you could repair.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. Amazing. The one thing I couldn't figure out was how to get one of our Sith troopers to be the red sergeant in that room. Because we only had 3 sets of armor and they were all chrome. And I'm like, can I highlight with magic mask and like color shift, but there is no color. So, it's like an offset tint. It was
super tough.
Weird. I couldn't quite figure that part out, but otherwise I think we took you through the intro pretty well.
Yeah. And I mean, the Sith troopers, I mean, I don't know if enough can be said. They look so good. Like they're really cool. And shout out to all of our guys who were in them, like your brother and Stuart. Like they're actually like pretty difficult to move around in. And we had them, falling and getting their head slammed into barrels and all that stuff. So, but they did a fantastic job. And again, Christy did a great job, her and her team.
And you have to remember, like when the game was first made and people were 3D modeling the Sith Trooper, they did not have to think that someone would actually have to wear this. Correct. So like the helmet is actually attached to the torso in the game in such a way that would make it impossible for somebody to actually put this on, So Christie's looking at reference images from the Old Republic that did like a cartel market drop where you could buy the original insurgent armor, and she's looking at people who have done like a mod for Battlefront 2. Degiel Knox is like an awesome modder, and he did his own rendition. So she's looking at these like other comparable references of people who have adapted the armor and trying to pretty much for herself redesign it in a way that's functional that our actors could wear. But it is entirely impractical. It's not like the Master Chief armor that kind of works the way it works.
Makes sense.
So that was fun. Moving forward, we start shooting June 2nd. We'll film the rest of the movie. You feeling halfway decent about it?
I'm feeling pretty good. Like it's daunting in the fact that we have a lot to shoot in a limited time. But I mean, we did the small version of that with the prologue, right? We had we shot, how many pages was it?
12.
Like 12 pages in like really 2-3-ish days.
Yeah.
Because some of those days we were kind of just teaching at the same time while we're trying to film. So, it was a lot, but I think I'm feeling pretty good about it. We have a lot of exciting things. Like you pointed out, like there's really nothing crazy expansive that we have to worry about. Obviously the biggest stressors, we have 2 pretty big action scenes with a mini one. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to get the actors, the props and the set design, everything look phenomenal. I think we're going to capture some really cool stuff.
And for those who have played the game and are familiar with the story and maybe wondering what our cutoff point is for this first movie, we're going to end at the tail end of Dantooine about. So we're not setting out to film, the 16-hour game, all the way to the Starforge. We're gonna cut it off there to kind of tell a story about this engineer's transformation into his Jedi trials. We're trying to avoid spoilers, so forgive me, but just to set everybody's expectations right, we want to tell that story. And depending on how it goes and how you all react, maybe a second and third movie could complete the theoretical trilogy. So stay tuned. We've got behind the scenes videos that'll come to you guys all summer that you could watch and see how we're doing and interact with us on our Discord channel. Otherwise, just let us know how we're doing along the way so that we know if this is something you want us to continue with and tell the trilogy, because I think it's something we would love to do.
Of course.
So far it's going pretty well. Yeah. So
I know. I think it's funny. We released the trailer, and someone's like, "Can you adapt KOTOR too?" And it's like, "Hold on, buddy."
And the Revan novel.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, you don't understand.
Whoa. But it was so funny. That was the craziest comment ever. I understood everything he was talking about, though. Like, wow, I'm so deep in this.
Oh, I know.
Well, yep. I guess that's all for now. Let's get back to planning and filming.
Let's do it.
Thanks again for joining us today. If you enjoyed our content, consider subscribing. Studio 70 is a division of the King's Academy, a K-12 private Christian school in West Palm Beach, Florida. For more information, visit studio70.tv or tka.net.